Hey everyone, welcome to PunkCast. My name is William Maxwell. I'm a student of Web3 and the owner of Punk5773. CryptoPunks are 10,000 uniquely generated characters stored permanently on the Ethereum blockchain. No punk is the same. This is a show dedicated to celebrating the punks behind the punk. My hope for this podcast is that we capture the essence of the punk culture, elevate the brand and the individual behind the punk. One last thing. Projects discussed on the show is not financial advice. Crypto and NFTs are a volatile and risky asset class. Please always do your own research. Other than that, let's go. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of PunkCast. And today we're back with Punk5773. He's a two Atty with Thin Mohawk and Vape. In real life, he's one of the brightest minds in crypto, heading up operations at 1KX, a leading crypto-focused investment firm. He was also instrumental in spearheading the formation of Punk Ventures, and I've definitely learned a lot from him. Please welcome none other than Mr. Henry Brodie to the show. Broads, how are you?
Thanks, Max. Yeah, good, mate. Thank you for having me on. Brightest minds of crypto. I'm not sure I've earned that title, but appreciate you having me on.
Mate, you're giving me all the alpha all the time. Appreciate you coming on. Well, you know, to be honest, man, I think we've been connecting on Telegram and Discord and with Punk Ventures and working on a few deals and working on a few events together. But I don't think we've actually had the opportunity to really sit down and unpack your story. So I'm pretty excited for this episode, mate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to be here. I'll preface this by saying I don't have a super exciting story, but there we go.
All right. Well, why don't we start off then? Like, Henry Brodie, you know, where did you grow up? What was your sort of upbringing, and what did you study? I guess maybe we start from there.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I grew up just outside of London, in a little village called Blackheath, and you know, I like going back to my studies. I was never really, you know, the golden boy, so to speak. I travelled around the southeast of the United Kingdom, going to various different schools and being taken out of various different schools for different reasons. I never really, you know, quite found my place in the education system. I guess I didn't really like people telling me what to do, and yeah, I travelled around a bit. You know, I put that actually down to something that I've kind of come to learn more recently is being slightly neurodivergent, I'd say, and probably learning in that kind of environment wasn't my style. That's why I think, you know, crypto really suits me. I think it gives you the kind of freedom to go and do things by yourself and you know, work with other people with a similar mindset as you. And yeah, I think it's very different to the working world. You know, I came out of university, I moved straight into London and started working in, you know, finance. I was working in a corporate service provider, like a bank, working on CLOs and CDOs. You know, the reason for the subprime mortgage crisis in 2008, and they rebranded it. Actually, it was like the rebranding, but they just were basically doing the same thing. And yeah, I never really that never really was something that I enjoyed. I was just doing it because you know, I was making a lot of money, and straight out of university I was making a lot more than all of my peers. And then I moved into kind of the hedge fund world, working on in private equity and private credit, and I always had crypto on the kind of back of my mind since maybe 2011, 2012. I was living with my brother at the time, and I kind of had crypto forced down my neck by him. I you know, working in traditional finance, I was one of those people that looked at it like magic internet money, and I never really believed in it. And I would have never got here by myself. I probably don't, you know, recognize the fact that I didn't have the right mindset for it at the time. And it was only by virtue of, being exposed to it every single day when I got home and looking at charts. And I remember we were sitting in the living room looking at the kind of charts during the Mount Gox crash, and my brother losing, all of his money that was in Mount Gox. And yeah, had I not had that exposure, I just definitely wouldn't have ended up here today.
What did you end up studying? Like, what was your choice of discipline?
Yeah, I did business. Very, very broad. When I went to university, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Back at school, I was kind of did a bit of everything. My main kind of focus was on the creative side, maybe like more towards art. But I ended up going to a college in the UK, and I had a very fortunate upbringing, very like spoiled, I'd say, as a kid, and never really wanted for anything. And I recognized that. And I went to a school where everyone kind of it's where famous people send their kids when they've been kicked out of, and my parents weren't famous, but it's quite an expensive school. Yeah, I was living next door to the drummer from Iron Maiden, lead singer from Iron Maiden, and the drummer from Queen. Was living in my dorm because it was a boarding school, and it was a very unique environment to go to school. But I was the only person in that school that was doing economics and maths. Everyone else there was people that would send their kids from abroad, like from Russia and China, and I was the only English speaking person, let's put it that way, that was doing maths and economics. Everyone else was doing drama and art and everything. And yeah, I just kind of went to university, did business with like an economics twist on it. And that was in Oxford. It was not Oxford University, it was Oxford Brookes. I often tell people I went to university in Oxford, and leave out the Brookes part. But so I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I thought, business is something that you can apply to everywhere. So that's the path that I took. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do outside of university either. I just kind of fell into finance.
You sort of alluded to that you were bouncing around schools for various reasons. Could you share some of those reasons? Were you a problem child, or?
Yeah, I mean, I've got three older brothers, all of them in crypto to varying degrees, and I'd say I grew up always much older than I was. I was the kid that was swearing when he was 6-7 years old, and no one else. So I wasn't invited to many parties, and I was just a nuisance because I went to these very one of the schools I went to was a military college, Wellington, and it's kind of the feeder school for Sandhurst, which is the officer military establishment in the UK, and everything's very regimented, and you also the way in which it works at that school is that the teachers obviously have some sort of control, but it's also the upper years. It's the in the UK, it's like the sixth formers, which dictate a lot of what you do, and they have authority over the younger years in the school. And obviously my brothers were older than the sixth formers, and I really didn't take authority, or wasn't really something that that could control me at that stage in my life, and I probably said things or did things that I shouldn't. So yeah, it was a mix of just not taking authority well, or not not fitting into that kind of regimented structure when I was younger.
Wow, yeah, man. As you're sort of talking, in some ways signals punk values, right? Independent, rebellious, all of those things started to come together early in your formative years, mate. So it sounds like you were a born and bred punk.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, just to touch on that, that's why this kind of the punk culture, and I don't necessarily think the CryptoPunk holders and people within this sphere are punks, but it does, the culture has an element of that, and it definitely resonates with me. the type of people that are in crypto, and more specifically like CryptoPunks, I think like we're very people within this sphere is very culturally aligned, which is why I think PunkDao works great, and I'll touch on that in a bit. But I think it's working with and kind of associating myself or like being in groups with people that have these kind of aligned values. I'd say that people are generally like very libertarian and kind of like counter establishment, and that definitely resonates with who I was as a child, and to an extent now. And I think having a group of people that's aligned in that way, that's why I was so interested in forming this DAO. Is you need people that are like culturally aligned with you, or thesis aligned with you, and to be successful, especially in DAOs where we have like a very diverse mix of people from all over the world, and you want people that have the same values as you, so you're pulling in the same direction. Because you see this a lot in DAOs, is that everyone's individualistic and everyone has their own opinions of like what they want to do, and if those things are pulling apart, then you have something that's just not very constructive. And I've witnessed it a lot in this space, because everyone is very different. And I think PunkDao, we have that basis of being aligned in our vision, our thesis, our cultural, like how we act, and what we deem valuable.
Well, I definitely want to dig into PunkDao, but maybe before we do that, if you can just touch on a little bit around your career path and then enter into crypto. So I think you spoke about working for those CDO companies. Were you there when GFC hit at that time?
No, that was
before.
Gosh, I would have been 18, 19 during the financial crisis, and it was about 3 years later. But there was definitely still, all of my colleagues. I was the youngest person in the company, just fresh out of university, and all of my colleagues had just kind of gone through this and experienced this, and there was a lot of, hangover from that, and a lot of, scar tissue, I'd say. And it was definitely something that was always kind of on the back of my mind. I didn't particularly like working in that industry because it felt like we were, how these things work, right? Something happens, something explodes, and you put in place systems and processes and governance, transparency, whatever it might be, to stop that thing from happening again. And then slowly over time it creeps back in, and I felt like a level of discomfort, feeling like over the kind of 2-3 years that I was working specifically in that side of the industry, it felt like we were kind of pushing the boundary every single month or year. We were writing new offering memorandum, which allowed us to operate more in a gray area. And to me, it felt irresponsible, and like I just felt uncomfortable working in an industry where they were moving back towards this, level of opaqueness. Exactly. And I was glad. So I moved out of that. I moved to a French hedge fund, and then after that, I moved to it was based in London, but it was a French hedge fund. And then I moved to a company called Pollen Street, which was completely out of that industry. It was just a credit and equities hedge fund, and it's a shame that they haven't kind of moved in this direction. But they're kind of the forefront of what would you say? It's not. It's kind of new finance. It's like peer-to-peer lending, and they were really positioned themselves in a place where they could have moved into the crypto market and taken advantage of that, and perhaps they still can, but I became very frustrated there because I was getting interested in crypto, and I was kind of trying to, push people towards that and think of ideas of how we can start adopting it, even in a small way, or even acknowledge it. But they were quite, stubborn in their ways, in the fact that they didn't really want to acknowledge the fact that crypto was becoming a thing. And this was when Ethereum was like $100-$200, and Bitcoin was wherever it was at the time.
Mm. At what point did you get red pilled? Like, I know you had a couple of brothers and that went through the whole Mount Gox thing. Like, but for you, like, when did that moment happen for you?
Yeah, so I was like trying to dip my toes in the water. It was 2017, just after 2017, because that was the bull market. And then and I was looking, I became interested. I put some cash into Ethereum, Bitcoin, the kind of like some of the altcoins at the time, like, gosh, what was it? Counterparty, and the original DAO, and some other interesting projects. And I was kind of dipping my toe in the water, and I was looking at various kind of hedge funds in London, or not hedge funds, crypto funds. And I actually got a job at I can't remember what it was called, something Alpha, and they were kind of a new startup fund. And the guy that was running it was incredible. He sadly doesn't work in crypto anymore, because basically just after the bull market, I got this job with this fund in crypto, and I was like, great, I'm going to start my crypto career. And then they got a call like a week later, and they basically went bust, and they like had basically raised through the bull market and started deploying capital right at the top, and then they just lost everything in a matter of like a couple of months, when as I was interviewing and got the job. So I kind of put it on the back burner, and I thought, I'll wait for the right time. We had moved into the bear market, and as happens so often with people that aren't really in crypto, like deep into crypto, the bear market comes and your interest kind of wanes. And then in 2020, mid 2020, my brother introduced me to one of the general partners at 1KX, and he was looking for someone with basically my skill set, and someone that was interested in crypto to come on board and run all the operations at 1KX. And 1KX was a tiny fund at the time. It was $38 million fund. It was three individuals, Lasse, Chris, and Peter. And so it was a huge step for me to be moving from a kind of $1.52 billion hedge fund to a $40 million fund in a volatile market, taking essentially a pay cut. But I was red pilled by my brother at the time. He believed so strongly, and he had launched a fund maybe a year before, or maybe a couple months before. And I was like, well, I just want to be in that industry. I don't want to be wearing a suit and tie to work every day and chatting to people at the water cooler about their weekend and their kids. I was like, I don't care about that. I want to get into crypto, and I want to spend my life on crypto Twitter and go to conferences and do something that I'm really passionate about. And finance, I wasn't really passionate about. It was a good way to earn money, but crypto, it's like a way to kind of blend my passion and somewhere that I could earn money, and something that I really enjoyed, and something that I was good at. That you'll probably be familiar with the term ikigai. So that was my kind of ikigai, and I probably got red pilled in that period between 2011, 2012, and 2018, 2019, and kind of decided that I definitely wanted to move into that area, regardless of taking a pay cut or not.
You said that it wasn't really you weren't a fan of the finance side, but in some ways, crypto is heavily finance related. But like, what is it about crypto then that you actually really enjoy?
I think it's the innovation. It's the it's just so interesting. People trying to tackle these problems in completely unique and different ways. You know, you can even if you look at like layer ones, and I know obviously a lot of people are into their Solana these days, and then you've got like Ethereum, Bitcoin, whatever. Like that, you know, probably not so much Bitcoin, but you look at like Ethereum versus Solana, Avalanche, like even Tezos or Cardano to an extent, and you look at these founders or these the group of devs or the project that they're trying to tackle a similar problem in very different ways, and it feels working in finance felt like we are just doing the same thing over and over again. And you know what I always say to people is like operations, especially in crypto, is very difficult because um, there's no two projects that are the same. That you know, you'll have one where you're it's like the consensus models are different, or the staking or liquidity pools or whatever. Everything's very different. In finance, you're doing the same thing that the last 100 people were doing before you, and they were doing 50 years before you. You know, the accounting software might have changed slightly, but you're essentially trading or transacting with the same bonds, the same loans, whatever it might be. It's the same products, and it just didn't feel like there's any innovation. And for me, crypto represents innovation and like a improvement on what we have today, and a vast improvement as well. I don't feel like I can reflect back on the last 5 years or even however long crypto's been about, but and say that we've done anything meaningfully good for the world yet. But I do think that we're at the precipice of being able to do something that's meaningful and impactful in hundreds of different sectors, which is super interesting.
Are you telling me these meme coins have absolutely no use to the world? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I think they do. Like this is something that was one of the first things that one of the general partners at 1KX said to me last year. It's like you know, understanding the power of memes. It's like you can you can kind of I don't I don't know how to put this, but like the power of memes is so fascinating to me. Like mimetic culture and bringing like communities and people together with like one shared joke. I think the like these meme coins, and I've dabbled in a few. I never ever bought them before this last cycle. I thought it was kind of stupid, but it is interesting. Aaron Wright, the one of the founders of Tribute, who you know well, wrote a really interesting like tweet the other day about meme coins, and yeah, I think there is a lot of power and a lot of something like tangible can come out of this. So we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, just touching on 1KX, can you just describe a little bit about 1KX does? And I know you sort of said they started off as a $38 million fund. But what kinds of things are you sort of guys investing in? Are you in a specific sort of vertical, or are you?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that 1KX does very well is having a very defined thesis, whether it's in one vertical or five different verticals. I'd say probably the and for those different verticals, having someone that is one of the best people in the industry to kind of understand that vertical we don't really step outside of these areas that we really understand. We've got, I'd say the kind of maybe 4 or 5 would be zero knowledge stuff. Like we got Way, that really is probably like one of the handful of people in the world that really understands ZK architecture and everything within that sphere. We've got Peter, who really knows his gaming and consumer side, and then infrastructure, deep in, and DeFi, and perhaps NFTs. I wouldn't say NFTs as NFTs in themselves, but kind of NFT infrastructure. We were one of the earliest investors in a lot of these projects and protocols like Sandbox, NFTFi. So yeah, I think we don't really kind of step outside of our lane. We're not looking at we're very Ethereum centric and kind of layer 2s as well. We've made some big bets into some layer 2s, but yeah, I think that's and on a more broader kind of sense, it's a venture fund, so we're investing early stage. I mean, it's actually, when I say venture fund, we have a very different setup to a normal venture fund, where you might find they raise a bunch of capital for a closed-end fund, and they invest over 5 years, and then they distribute over 3 years. We do have a closed-end venture fund, but the flagship fund is an open-ended evergreen structure, so people can come and invest at any point in time over the minimum subscription, and we have side pockets, so we can make venture investments and keep people from getting diluted if they invest 5 years or 2 years ago. They won't get diluted on their investments if someone new comes in today, which is quite a unique structure, and it takes a huge operational lift to execute on that structure, because there's very complex accounting and kind of management of like capital accounts and stuff. But yeah, it's been a really enjoyable ride, and I'm really looking forward to the next kind of 5 years of what we do. We've built out the team. I think we've got 23, 24 people now, and it feels like we're perfectly positioned for the next few cycles.
Amazing. Now, I've heard Peter talk a couple of times on some of the calls, and his tweets are really insightful as well, so I've learned a lot of him. Yeah, and I've also noticed that you guys have also dabbled in DAOs as well, and maybe I think in particular Hydra Venture DAO and stuff like that I've sort of seen. And can you just maybe just share a little bit about your interest in DAOs? Maybe we can riff on PunkDao and Punk Ventures along those lines.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, Peter, obviously, he was the third kind of person into 1KX shortly before me. I think he joined about a month or so before me. And Peter was one of the kind of founding members of Meta Cartel, which you'll probably be familiar with. And I think I can't recall the actual timeline. I don't know if Meta Cartel came first or the Lao came first, but they're obviously very similar in what they did, and they co-invested in a lot of deals together. And in terms of 1KX, this is probably a better question for Peter and the other kind of investment partners. But I think that we kind of see the same value. We as a fund see the same value that I see in these investment DAOs. There's obviously some things that they're very good at, some things that they're not so good at, but the collective hive mind of all of these people from diverse backgrounds, the ability to kind of like bring in new deal flow and DD this deal flow, if you have an investment DAO and you've got a good, I think what's really key for these investment DAOs is having like a flag bearer, having someone that's going to kind of lead the charge and keep things like ticking along. It's great also having, Tribute in PunkDao and the other venture DAOs that I'm in as a service provider. And they take on a big chunk of that role and keeping things ticking. But yeah, that was, we as a fund saw a lot of value in these venture DAOs, and I think Hydra was a product of that. Essentially a DAO of DAOs. So it's an investment DAO to invest in other DAOs, and I think that was launched just over a year ago now, maybe, and I can't recall how many. I think they've invested in 4 or 5, maybe 6 investment DAOs. But there's a lot of. It's a very active DAO. It's got some fantastic members in. But yeah, it's that's kind of the thinking behind it. Is these their little pockets, communities of if you curate the right group of people as you launch these DAOs, and they can be really impactful and you can learn a lot from them.
Along those lines, and how did you, I guess, initiate, the idea around PunkDao and Punk Ventures? Did that come from you, or?
Yes. Well, to be honest, it was the Telegram group, which is now, gosh, I don't know how many members it has got in it, probably over 700 now. But it was ETH Denver that it was launched. Was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago? I think it must have been 2 years ago. And I was in ETH Denver at the time and joined this Telegram group. And slowly over time, it became, not just the ETH Denver Punks Telegram group, it became the CryptoPunks Telegram group. And that was launched by Isaac and Sergito. And as we grew, I think the member base was about 80, 90 people at the time. People were talking about, oh, we should start a DAO. We should be doing some more stuff, like, because there was so much stuff coming through that channel. It was like a really fantastic group for alpha or sharing ideas. And people for about 4 or 5 months, maybe even longer actually, after ETH Denver, were saying we should start a DAO. And every time someone said that, I was like, we should start a DAO. And no one really took the reins on it. I was like, after 6 months, I was like, right, I'm just going to start a standing call every week. And I will post it in this Telegram chat. And if people want to join, then they can join. If they don't want to join, then they don't need to join. And we kicked off that call, and it probably had about 15, 20 people on it. And, we kind of started thinking about how we would structure this out. And there was definitely a divide in the community of like what people wanted to do. My real interest was the venture side, because there's a lot of like deal flow that happens, and I can't invest directly as an angel into these deals anyway. But regardless, I wouldn't have got access to these opportunities myself. And I thought, this is a great opportunity to raise a bit of capital where we have like a meaningful amount to put into these projects. And the tagline of 99 CryptoPunks, investing in your project. I mean, you've seen the power of that branding. And I thought, this is a great community. People are kind of thesis aligned. And that was what I really wanted to do. There were other people that weren't so interested in the venture side and wanted to run a community DAO and, find some way of getting like some revenue income into the community side and funding like events and stuff, or merchandise, or one of the other big ideas was that we would like lease out our punks or IDs for people to use them. And so we kind of went with both things. We were like, let's start PunkDao, we'll start a venture side and we'll start community side. And that was the kind of the inception of the idea was we just started having these calls on a weekly basis for about 2 months, and I got in contact with Aaron at Tribute and said, I'd like to get this rolling, and the rest is history.
Amazing. Mate, I think really well done, because I don't think without your leadership to pull that one through, I don't think it would have gotten off the ground. I think there's a lot of people with opinions and very, very strong personalities, but nobody's got the conviction to sort of follow through. So well done on that, mate. And I think on my side too, I think when you got what sort of piqued my interest is getting Tribute involved, because I remember when Flamingo sort of started, and they were sort of launching, I sort of faded it, and then I went back to ask Aaron, what's the sort of buy-in to get back in, and he said it's like 1,000 ETH now. So I sort of felt like this might be a good way to invest during the bear with like-minded people, as you sort of said, and obviously being here in Asia, I definitely don't get that same deal flow that some of you guys get in, I guess, the US and Europe. So yeah, no.
Yeah. I mean, I had a similar issue. I mean, my brother James is invested in, I think, all of the, or maybe all but 2 or 3 of the Tribute DAOs, and they have, I don't even know how many they have now. They must have about 17, 18 investment DAOs. But I was supposed to, or I was going to invest in the Lao when it kicked off, and Flamingo, and I just didn't have the capital at the time. I was like, oh, it won't be a big deal. I could do it another time. And then it was just not accessible anymore. And I fortunately got access, I've got exposure to those DAOs through my brother's fund, but not getting that ticket because I didn't have the 40, 50 ETH buy-in at the time is pretty pretty hard to stomach sometimes. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. And just a caveat as well, I mean, I started those calls with PunkDao, but it was definitely, there was it's a DAO, right? And people often ask me, are you the founder of PunkDao? I'm like, no, because it's a DAO. There's no founder, there's no president, there's no CEO. We do everything as a collective group. And that was very much, I started the calls, but there was a pretty strong core member group like Arcadius, Golan, and a few others I'm forgetting the names of now, but there was a very core group of us that really brought that through, and it was certainly by no stretch of the imagination me that was that kind of brought this thing to fruition. It was I'd say even Arcadius to this day is in terms of the entire DAO has put a lot of time into it, and more so than me. So it was by no means a single man job.
And just briefly as well, because I get this question all the time. What's the difference between the community side and the venture side? A lot of punks are trying, have seen PunkDao, but sort of feel like it's a bit restricted and closed off because they sort of felt it was investment DAO. So can you just help delineate, I guess, those two components of the DAO?
Yeah. So this was, and it was something that I was kind of had a big issue with when we launched. Is this the venture DAO is closed to CryptoPunks in terms of you need to be voted in. I mean, one thing that we did when we launched it is it was open to any CryptoPunk that wanted to join. But after that point in time, once we had the first cohort, which was about 42 members, we said, any future members will need to get voted in by majority vote. And the reason for that is because what they call seats, there's 99 seats, and this is a limitation as a Delaware LLC. So you can only have 99 members or people or entities within the structure of the DAO. So it's a scarce resource, basically. One of the big issues of running a venture DAO as a Delaware LLC is that you have a maximum capacity. So we launched the DAO, the venture side, with the kind of with an open invitation to anyone that wanted to put in the minimum amount. And then after that point in time, we said it's now closed because we have to be very careful with who we bring in. We want to make sure that we get people that are active and contribute. Otherwise, it's not going to be successful. And we want to get people that are aligned with our thesis and our kind of strategy. So that's the venture side, and that just makes venture investments like any venture fund. And then we've got the community side, which we launched at the same point in time. And this is, the community side's got a treasury of over $200,000 from, various like airdrops of NFTs that we got given, or whitelists that we went on to sell. And this is more, this is an open to anyone that owns a CryptoPunk. If you own a CryptoPunk, you can go onto the website and mint your PunkDao membership pass, and it's more for bringing the community together, thinking about like ways in which we can promote CryptoPunks and the culture, not just to CryptoPunks but other people. It's not, CryptoPunks aren't accessible to a lot of people, so we want it to be inclusive. And we host these events, which you've hosted one of them in Hong Kong at Soho House, and we want to do a lot more of that in the future with specific CryptoPunks in whatever geographies it is, to running these events. So we have like a kind of process or framework in place for people to launch these events in their home countries, in their hometowns, when there's conferences around, and you can take a big chunk of the kind of profits from those events, from sponsorships or ticketing or whatever it might be. We've launched the kind of website. We've from the community side, we've launched the NFT, like DAO membership NFT. We've bought a load of merch for people within the DAO. And the idea is from the inception was, a bit like Nouns or MeBitsDAO or whatever it might be, is to kind of a place for people to come together and, they're aligned within this community, to think about how we can add back to the community or drive value back to CryptoPunks, and what we can do to benefit CryptoPunks. So, we've got what I would say a strong relationship with Yuga Labs, and we're always thinking of ways in which also we can drive revenue back to the community, and then we can start using some of those proceeds to build out that community and make it stronger.
Absolutely. No, and I guess for those that are listening, I mean, the community side is free for everybody to join, get behind it. The DAO does have a bit of treasury, so if you're looking to host your own event, similar to what I did in Hong Kong last year, PunkDao was able to help fund some of that, and also help us secure sponsors and help me figure out what needs to be done in terms of ticketing and marketing and that like too. So if you want to pull something like that together for your local sort of space, definitely sort of reach out to PunkDao. It's an additional resource there for sure. So that's pretty exciting, Henry, and hopefully we can throw more events and maybe catch up at one of these this year. So switching gears a little bit, let's talk about your punk, man. So Punk5773, Mohawk Thin Vape. How did you, I guess, get into punks, or get into the idea of wanting a punk? What was your journey to punks?
So my journey actually started off when they were minting, and I never minted, but I think I mentioned that I was living with my brother at the time, and God, this is obviously my biggest miss, but I remember, or my brother's biggest miss, because I probably wouldn't have done it anyway. I wasn't really in crypto, full time at that point, and I certainly didn't see the value of CryptoPunks and these 64-bit pictures or whatever. And I remember we were sitting in the living room and looking at these pictures and these NFTs, and James, my brother, like saying, oh, he's not going to mint one because the gas that he would have paid to mint them, they were free mint, but the gas he would have paid would be worth thousands in the future, and it was a complete waste of money. And to this day, I still give him shit about that because, and you know, he's made some great bets and had some good wins, but this is probably one of the hardest for him to swallow. So I came back to them in late 2020 when Flamingo DAO purchased a bunch of punks and basically sold them to members, or they had a deal to get a bunch of punks and members could buy one or a couple for themselves. And my brother actually bought not the punk that I have now, or not the punk I even had before, but he bought punks for everyone in our family. So I think he bought 6 punks in total. And still to this day, I've not paid him for that punk, but it sits in his wallet. It's not the punk that I use as my profile picture, but that was my introduction to punks. And, you know, that's a kind of running joke between us. Because I'm like, I'd like to get my punk. And he says, yeah, I'd like to get my, I think it was 2 ETH that I still need to pay him for that punk. There's a pretty good deal, pretty good option call on that. Yeah, so that was kind of my introduction. And I was looking back through my messages the other day on my Telegram chat, and it was the same time that Flamingo bought the Alien. And he was like, oh yeah, Flamingo just bought this for however much. I can't remember how much they bought it for now. But I was like, what, you paid that for a digital picture? He's like, yeah, I bought you guys one as well. You just had to pay me 2 ETH. And I remember telling him that I'm not paying you 2 ETH. I think that was, how much was it? It was it was $1,000 I had to give you for 4 ETH, so it would have been about $200. Anyway, I was like, I'm not giving you $1,000 for that digital picture. That's ridiculous. So that was my gateway into NFTs actually. So that was the first NFT that I purchased, which I still haven't actually purchased. And then later in the year, I think like 3-4 months later, I started buying squiggles and like getting into my generative art. We launched a generative art DAO on Tezos, and obviously Tezos is a ghost chain, but the generative art scene on Tezos is fantastic, and really, really incredible artists come from Tezos, and you know, a lot of them are blocks curated artists. And then I just started getting more into my NFTs and ended up purchasing a few more punks. So the one that I've got now, and I've got another couple that run my Anon Twitter account. So
I won't dox you on those. But for this particular one, 5773, is there a reason why you picked this guy as your personal identity?
Yeah. So the one that my 5773, I'm just looking it up. So obviously, I love to vape. So the vape pen was absolutely essential, and it was actually Pre that is one of the people at Tribute. I remember when I was kind of first getting to know the Tribute folks, and this was around just before I launched PunkDao. I kind of really got to know them, and I remember her saying something in the CryptoPunks Telegram chat about dildo-headed punks, and it just made me laugh so much that they're the dildo-headed punks. And I was like, I think I put in the chat the other day in the Telegram chat, 'cause someone was asking about why did you pick your punk, and I was like, I think people pick the punks that most resonate with themselves and resemble them. So I obviously had to get one with a dick on its forehead. I feel like that most represents me and my personality. So yeah, that's my special punk. I think that will be my forever punk. Unless they go up to like $1 million, I probably have to let that one go. But we'll see.
Lovely story. Well, Beeple is joining you on that dildo front as well, right? I think he recently got one.
Yeah, he did.
And if you know money wasn't an issue, what sort of punk would be your dream punk? Do you think? Like, do you have any favorite traits that come to mind?
I mean, obviously everyone. Well, I don't know what everyone says, but I imagine that if money wasn't an issue, then people would have like an alien or an ape or a zombie. But outside of that, definitely a hoodie with VR. I think, um,
Yeah, it'd be cool.
yeah, I think hoodie with VR is my favorite. Maybe the purple cap. I think Aaron has a purple cap or the knitted cap. You got a knitted cap, don't you? Yeah. So those are kind of my top ones.
Nice. But yeah, shout out to Pre and Aaron, by the way. Absolutely fantastic people down at Tribute, helping us out with PunkDao.
Yeah, they're
And
legends.
yeah, cool. And then if you had to look across, I guess the punk community, do you have any sort of favorite punks that come to mind? This is your opportunity for some shout
Um,
outs now.
no option for some shout outs. Like Arc. Probably not a huge amount of people know Arcadius because he's quite he's not he doesn't have a big like Twitter following, and he's not a very like loud outspoken person, but the guy is an absolute genius, and an amazing dev, and whenever I need something built, he can build it for me in literally seconds. In fact, I sent him something just before the weekend, and I sent it to him at like midnight on Friday, and by like 8 a.m. on Saturday it was done. So yeah, he's just awesome, and like out of the like kindness of his heart, he just will help people and get stuff done. So huge shout out to Ark, and also another big kind of punk personality and someone that's probably more in the limelight is Serge Ito, really nice guy, doesn't take himself too seriously, but I was super pumped to get him on to PunkDao. But yeah, he was one of the kind of original founders of the Telegram CryptoPunk Telegram chat, and yeah, he's just a really standout guy. And it was a pleasure to meet him when I was out in New York more recently. But yeah, those are my two
Yeah,
punk personalities,
good
and
good
you
choices.
obviously,
Yeah,
Max.
of course. Thanks, Henry. Appreciate it. Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think Ark is sort of a bit of a hidden gem for the punk community. He's done a lot behind the scenes for PunkDAO and a lot of the events that we're sort of hosting. So big shout out
Yeah,
to Ark.
I think he's a
And
hidden gem for the crypto community. Like the guy, I don't know why he's not running his own project or something now, but he's a genius dev and a really bright mind. So yeah, he's a good one to have along.
absolutely. I think he's a dev for Swiggle DAO. So for those guys that are in Swiggle DAO, I think you'll be familiar with him.
Yeah,
Um, awesome. And then how would you describe punk culture for you?
punk culture. Good question. I think something that I was talking about at the beginning of the call is kind of the anti-establishment, breaking from the norms, and I think we're all kind of culturally, or a lot of us are very culturally aligned on that. You know, doing things differently, and having a good time while we're doing it. The CryptoPunks Telegram chat and the Discord as well that Shirley and a few other people run. It is typically sometimes not so good vibes, but typically just really fun environment to participate in it. When I open up my Telegram in the morning, the first thing I do is open up CryptoPunk's Telegram chat, because and that's testament to the kind of level of enjoyment and how I feel like people within that community are aligned with myself. And it's a good place for alpha. It's a good place for just chatting. It's the punk community is the strongest asset, or the best thing about holding one of these NFT assets. Being part of that community is definitely the best part of crypto for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think probably also why these events and meeting face to face becomes a really important part of our DNA, right? I think it just changes the dynamic when we're all at these punk brunches and events around the world. Um, how do you feel about V1 punks?
I
Give it to
I
me,
mean,
Henry. Give it to me.
I usually have very strong opinions about stuff. I just like I'm agnostic and I just don't care. I know that some people care a lot, and some people are insulted, or some people are, think that they're the true crypto punks. I don't think they're the true crypto punks because it's not what the artists intended them. They didn't intend them to be the true crypto punks. If people want to believe that, then they can believe that, and I'll believe what I want to believe. I just like there's too much drama in crypto to give a shit about this, and I'm just kind of like, whenever someone raises it, I'm just like, well, I just can't be asked to talk to you about it. It's like it's not interesting to me. And I know some people have very strong views either side of this, and I'm just like, I don't care. For me, that it's just another NFT collection that's a shittier version than punks, and if people want to collect them, go collect them. It doesn't bother me.
Nice. I'll move along. What about the Yuga acquisition? How do you feel about that when that happened to punks?
Again, I think punks will exist. They can't have their wings cut from or clipped rather from someone owning the IP or someone owning the brand. They will exist in their own silo, and I think Yuga have done a good job at not trying to disturb anything around PunkDao. I feel like they're very cautious and careful around what they do. They've not done anything in my eyes that's negatively impact them yet. I say that yet because I definitely think that there are things that they could do. Natalie, I don't know what Natalie's title is, like CryptoPunk ambassador or GM. Okay. But she's done a great job at like understanding punk culture and the people and what we value, and not disturbing that, and kind of holding our values in high regard, and not wanting to kind of devalue our pretty JPEGs. So yeah, when they joined, I was a bit I was concerned because I thought they had the ability to do something somewhat destructive. But now, like, moving past that, I think CryptoPunks operate as their own brand, and someone can own the brand and someone can own the IP, but it doesn't really change anything. And I think they're just going to, CryptoPunks as an NFT collection, and the community will continue to run either way. And I'm not hugely concerned about the kind of ownership or the kind of I'm not concerned about Yuga, basically.
Yeah, gotcha. And I agree with you too. I think we had the privilege of working with Natalie on Punk's Brunch last year, and a few other things in the back end, but really supportive of punks, really respectful of punks and the brand that she's got to really try and help navigate and steer us through. But I guess from your side as well, are there any other things that you think is missing from punks, and what could be done better? I think for punks, I mean, where would you sort of like to see punks in the next sort of 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so. I think they're just, punks will continue to do what they're doing, and just by the nature of like being one of the first NFT projects, the first 10,000 generative PFP projects, the provenance behind that, the community and the holders of those CryptoPunks and the values that they hold, they will continue to accrue value, and given the scarcity, as crypto takes off and as people kind of recognize NFTs as like a subclass of this asset class, there's going to be continued like value accretion to punks. What I'd like to see is punks in museums of and modern art collections. I think Noah and a few other people have done a good job at starting that kind of movement, and I think over time it will continue to get more recognition as the kind of that provenance of the start of a movement, and the start of people being able to kind of like identify with as pictures of themselves and NFTs of themselves on social media or even in person. So yeah, I don't see it becoming like something that's super entwined with like the metaverse, and I don't want to see loads of kind of punk derivatives being spun out by Yuga, which I don't think they do. I think you just leave them as they are, and they will continue to accrue value.
Yeah, I agree. Punks are just gonna do their thing. Maybe one final question before we sort of wrap up, but because I know you're sort of deep in the investment crypto space and the market's heating up right now. What are your sort of top 3 sort of spaces that you're really bullish on for the next run up?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't have the luxury of looking too deeply into the investment side as the operations person at 1KX. I do a bit of it at PunkDao, obviously. And as you know, I mean, we've discussed this before. I'm quite a purist. I own some R blocks, some punks, ETH, and Bitcoin. I'm definitely interested, outside of that, I think probably the most exciting thing for me is around scaling, and I think one of our big bets in PunkDao is Eigen as well, which would be interesting. I think when ZK Sync launches, I think that's going to be really interesting, and potentially will take a lot of market share away from these layer ones that have been spun up, or the public and retailer aggregating towards. Meme coins definitely could be interesting. Hopefully pump my bags, but yeah, I'd say I think DeFi is going to make a comeback, like layer 2 scaling, and will be a big kind of topic this cycle. As there's a lot more retail interest, and these chains become congested and gas fees get significant. Gaming, on-chain games, autonomous worlds is very interesting. I feel like that might be a next cycle thing. But yeah, I think AI is obviously a big one. I just don't know. I don't know whether it's going to be this cycle thing, or whether crypto is going to have such a meaningful impact, or the synergy is going to be so meaningful. I mean, my brother would kill me for saying that because he's so deep into crypto X AI. But yeah, we'll see.
See, nice picks. I'll keep an eye out for those themes. And if you could pass on a message to the next owner of Punk5773, what would you like to say to them?
Well, I mean, hopefully it passes to my son, or my son and my daughter together. So I'd probably tell them, don't sell it. Just hold on to it. But if they're anything like me, they'll sell it immediately. So we'll see.
Nice. Henry, this is super fun, man. And I really enjoyed our chat and getting to know you a little bit more. I guess any final closing comments on your side, and what's the best way for people to find you?
Yeah, in terms of best way to find me, it's on Twitter. I'm not a huge Twitter person, but I'm Henry Brodie on Twitter. And yeah, final comments would be, come check out PunkDao, whether you're interested in the venture side or the community side. You know, I've been saying this for the last 6 months, but I really would like to do another capital raise for Punk Ventures. So we need some willing and participatory punks to come join us and make some great investments through the next cycle. So yeah, we will hopefully be opening up in the next kind of like 4 to 6 months, get some new members in. But yeah, otherwise come to the community side and hopefully see you at some events.
Amazing. Henry, this has been fun, man. And, may your bags be full this cycle, and hope to catch you at one of these future events. And guys, that wraps up an episode of PunkCast for the week, and we'll be back next week with another punk. Bye for now.